Is Deadlock better than Apex Legends, or is Apex Legends better than Deadlock? Is this even a question that we all should be asking ourselves? I know many of you are now in the position like many of us are in real life, where we're pinching pennies, we're thinking about where we put our money, where we spend our time, because things are more expensive and we have less time than ever to utilize. We've got more responsibilities as we grow older with kids, relationships, mortgages, and our family and work. And we want to make sure when we jump onto a game that it's fulfilling. Games like Deadlock and Apex Legends hit an interesting part of the gaming spectrum, where they're some of the most fulfilling experiences, but they are also some of the most time-consuming and frustrating. In this video, I aim to give you 3 consistent elements that each game provides and tell you where they align in their most unique and fun aspects, to give you an idea of if you should be investing your time in them. And I'll also tell you where both of these games exceed your expectations and deliver their most fun, and what that says about the future of both of these mega blockbusters. Let's first start off with Apex Legends. Apex Legends has gone through the "I'm dying, help me" phase so many times that I'm officially calling it the boy who cried wolf, because at this point, I don't believe it, and neither should you. Admittedly, the people saying that Apex is dying are people who are looking for an early exit. They don't want to be caught in a game that is failing and eventually leaves them without any options to transition. And I understand that, because being a content creator, I'll tell you guys, it's stressful. You don't know when the right time to switch. It could mean millions of dollars, literally life-changing money if you switched at the right time, and it could also put you into a mega slump if you stay on a game that is on the downtrend. However, Apex Legends to me is a 10 to 20-year property, and there's nothing that can change my mind on that. This game continues to have players, and it's because of the phases that it produces its success. And this is where it mostly differs from Deadlock, and it creates a different opportunity and challenge for the developers to keep people interested. As I've always been a big part of Apex Legends and the ALGS, I'm even nominated for an Esports Host of the Year award for my work there in this 4th year of our pro league. So go ahead and vote if you can. I'll put the link in the description. That would help. You could vote every single day. The thing about Apex Legends is the phases deliver an ongoing increased value when you play the game. What do I mean by that? It's kind of like dividends or investing in a stock. You get more the longer that you're invested, and the value of Apex Legends becomes better the more that you play the game. And this is what is the essential element of a BR that makes it interesting to watch and very interesting to play. Apex Legends starts off with a looting and drop fight phase, where you either jump into a high contested area and fight off the rip, which a lot of people love to do to start the games and get that feeling of excitement, and if they can make it out of the chaos. It's also where you don't have a weapon, so randomness and RNG either ticks out of your favor, which takes away a good feeling, or gives you something wonderful, and you get that nice dopamine hit early on, and you find yourself looking forward to the rest of the game. Then, after you get your weapons and you make it out of the chaos, you start looking at where the zone is and where you need to position yourself to hopefully have a good final part of the game and be the last team alive. This is the rotating phase, the mid game, where you're constantly moving, looting up off of boxes, and maybe, if you're lucky, getting to the zone you want early and in a nice spot, or if you're unlucky, running across a few teams and having now a fight between 2 teams who are decently geared, which, if you win, will set you up for a great chance at our final phase, which is the end game. Now you're in a great spot. The zone is almost fully closed, but it's enough for 4 teams to be fighting against one another. You see someone across and you're peppering them with sniper shots. You're pressuring the team on the right side who might be trying to rotate behind you, so you're using those fused knuckle clusters and that catalyst wall to block them off and force them to take another approach to fight your enemies instead. You push in on everyone, you drop that Horizon ultimate, and you follow it up with some huge... Hey, Raynday, this is a video, you're not casting. My bad. Anyways, what you understand is you're having a great time. You get that final moment, you win the game, and you feel like this is the greatest experience I've ever had in my life. That's what Battle Royales bring, and that's what Apex always brings. But I want to ask you a question now that we've talked about it. What is the best phase? If you think about it, I'm pretty sure most people think that the best phase of Apex Legends is the full team fights. When you're fully geared, when you've got strategy at your hand, you've got 2 teammates by your side, and you have a fair but exciting strategic battle to determine who is the best in the lobby. The problem with Apex Legends, and what has continually been a lot of the feedback given to the game as it's become a more mainstay game and increased the experience of its player base, is that it's much harder to get to that end zone. Oh my God, I'm watching a lot of college football. I mean, in game, sorry. But what I really mean is that Apex Legends' biggest payoff is the final part of the game. And if it gets harder and harder to experience the best part of the game, then you're going to have issues in getting that dopamine hit to get people to return. If people can only get to the looting drop phase and the rotating phase and don't have a lot of time in the end zone phase, because of various reasons, it will make it harder to get that feedback and make you want to keep coming back to play Apex Legends. So the unique challenge they have is how to get more of that experience to players across the board at all skill levels. But before we look at the solution, let's see if we can learn something from Deadlock. The first time I'm talking about this game on my channel. Now, Deadlock is a MOBA hero shooter, and the interesting part about Deadlock for me is that it's got a very different problem from Apex Legends, and I think this can help us not only examine Apex Legends from a different lens, but look at competitive games where they get the most bang for buck in terms of gaming enjoyment from their audience, and how they can double and triple down on those impacts so that they can provide experiences that keep their player base not only jumping in the front door, but staying for a long period of time. Now, while Apex Legends might have one issue in getting some players to the end game, Deadlock might have the opposite issue on its hands. Deadlock has a starting phase, which is what we call the laning phase in any MOBA. It's where 2 players or 4 players go head-to-head with minions on either side, trying to eliminate the enemy team's minions and push their minions while keeping them alive and applying pressure to their enemy heroes that are fighting on the other side and push them back all the way towards their lane. And unlike in Smite, there really is a form of denial, very similar to Dota, where you can not only wait for an enemy to shoot your minions, but you can deny them that experience by shooting the bubble that floats outside of the minion's body once they're killed, essentially taking away XP from your enemy and giving it to you, creating a snowball effect if you can do it more often than not. This is an added layer of skill that makes the laning phase not only very competitive, but also as you can have a feeling of winning your lane, which is something that is very clear, concrete, and gives somebody that initial dopamine hit like I did a good job. It also creates very simple parameters for how to succeed, whereas in a game like Apex Legends, it's very difficult to know how to succeed. Where do you land? What weapon do you pick up? Who are you fighting? Should you run? Should you not? There are 1,000 more questions to answer, and Deadlock keeps this very simple in the start of the game. After that, in Deadlock comes the second phase, which is called the roaming phase. It's essentially where you take everything that you've done in your lane, whether you've won or you've lost, and you start looking for side camps. You start pushing your lane sometimes, or looking for these little fights or experience buffs or boons that you can find to help give you a little bit of advantage. This is where you start thinking a little bit more about your team. Who's losing so badly I need to help? Who's winning so that I can cherry pick a few of those souls and get that item that I need? This is where you start finding your first real increase in power. As you have more money, you're looting more things, you're killing more side camps and maybe mid bosses, and you're finally getting to those power points where you're hitting a power curve that you feel powerful, or you've gotten your ability to a second level, so now you can use it twice. This is where you start to feel that jump, and it's also a very exciting phase of the game. The thing about MOBAs is this is the best phase of the game if you win your lane. If you win your lane and then you get to this roaming phase and you're stronger than everyone else, you can snowball this big time. And what that means is just you take what you're doing and you just do more of it because you're already in a lead, and that lead compounds to an even bigger league. Let's go back to stocks. You got 100,000 in there. Well, that 100,000 is going to make more for you than if you only had 1,000 in there. So you just keep making more and more and more money without having to do anything more. That's the fun of a MOBA, and that's what everyone hopes to get to. But in Deadlock, there's been some issues around what do I necessarily do in this time? Are there enough camps? Are there enough roaming fights that make sense? Are people laning too long? Or is there nothing to really fight for objective-wise that makes this mid-phase interesting until we start getting into the final phase? The final phase is the full team fights and base fighting. And I think this, while it is really fun, oftentimes in MOBAs can be a foregone conclusion, which is why in my channel, we said F7. F7 is the button that would not surrender a game in Smite, whereas F6 is the game where you would surrender, meaning you feel you've gotten so far behind in the early game and the mid game that you don't even want to play the late game. This should showcase to you, not on my channel, but how most people think, which is if you lose early to mid-game, in-game is just essentially a formality. And the fact of having 5 really over-leveled characters fighting against 5 under-leveled characters and continuing to do that and waste time and time again, it's not effective for anybody, and you might as well just give them the game. That is how hard it can be to come back from a huge deficit in a MOBA, unlike in Apex Legends, where anybody has a chance to win. So why do we examine these two games? Well, 1, I think they're interesting games to look at on the channel. 2, I think my audience has familiarity with them, and I think you guys enjoy them and have certain thoughts on them as well as this video, which I'd love to hear. And 3, I think they have 2 different design needs. 1, a game like Apex Legends has a need to try to push people through the early phase into the end game, which is really the most satisfying part of Apex, but it's the hardest thing to get to. Meanwhile, in Deadlock, you've got a game that starts off with some of the most fun 10 minutes that you've ever experienced, especially in current online gameplay, because that laning phase, those characters, it's just a ton of fun. But when you get to the mid game and the end game, sometimes it can feel like a formality, or it loses a little bit of the luster of how good it started. Now, I'm not proud of this, but I only shared answers in class about once, and that's when I was playing with the national team at 17 years old and going to a school that essentially called itself a school when it wasn't. Okay, I played World of Warcraft online during one of my history tests and still got an A. And I'm not lying about that. This was in 2006, so that is crazy to think. I had to have like a whole, Verizon internet stick plugged into my computer. I don't even know if they make those anymore. But the point is that it's okay certain times to actually share some secrets, share some notes. And I think Deadlock and Apex could take a page out of each other's playbooks. If I'm Valve and I'm Respawn, I'm looking at these two games and going, Apex has this amazing crescendo, and it's one of the best in any game. It also feels amazing. While Deadlock, our game, has this incredible early phase that feels satisfying and guaranteed. It's not going to end in 30 seconds and make you feeling frustrated. You're going to have a chance. But once we get past that end game, things get a little wonky. If they learn how to create that end game from Apex so that you have a chance if you get to that final end zone, even if you're on some lower shields or you don't have as many souls and you're not leveled up as well, you've got a chance to win that fight, then I think it's going to do the game well and really keep the pacing up so that people find a home in Deadlock for the long term. And in Apex, we've got to find a way to allow casual players to have that in-game experience more consistently so that they feel that there's a reason to log on and they've actually got hope that they can get a win. And I'm not saying that either of these games can't go their own way. They certainly have and clearly have been successful and will continue to be over the next many years. And maybe just this once, it's okay for them to share notes. As always, never give up, never stop gaming. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.